Hello and welcome everyone to our latest Agile Boston podcast. I'm Joe DeAngelis, and I am super excited to introduce you to the three authors of this great book, Facilitating Professional Scrum Teams, Patricia Kong, David Spinks, and Glaudia Califano. And today we're going to talk about this book, but not only this book in terms of its contents, but how this book is really going to tie into our larger conversation about the next generation Scrum Master. So guys, welcome to Agile Boston. Thank you for accepting our invitation to talk about the book. I've gone through it. I love it. It's been fantastic. It's not only a great book to read, but it's a great reference book as well. So if you want to go back to anything specific, you can. So yeah, tell me a little bit how you got started putting this book together.
Thanks for having us, Joe. I think I may have bullied Claudia and David. To be honest, Claudia, it was a little bit about that, but I think if I were to think almost a couple years back, we were seeing all the trend with liberating structures, with all these things happening, lots of icebreakers, Scrum Masters trying to learn a lot about facilitation. And there was a little bit of the why that was lost and the purpose behind it. And so we wanted to, one at scrum.org, have a course that would help people think about the context of which they were facilitating in, give them the real tools that they could use, give them some practice. And then we were like, wow, this isn't enough. We should expand this into a book, which is how me, Claudia, and David came to it. Did I forget anything? I mean, is that it?
I think you covered it, and I think a really important point is indeed that sometimes what we see is that sometimes people lose the purpose. Like they can facilitate something, but actually lose the focus and the purpose and the outcome that you actually want from that facilitation. And I think that can be quite frustrating for teams as well. So I think that's kind of what we wanted to bring it back to, like back to those principles and back to the purpose. Like every Scrum event has a purpose, but the book also goes far beyond just facilitating Scrum events. It talks conflict, it talks about team dynamics, it talks about all that kind of facilitation that you have from day to day, and what the purpose is of that. So yeah, I think we're quite passionate about that, and we really wanted to bring that to life.
I think I would also add, I think we wanted something that was going to be really practical. I mean, Scrum Masters can take a training class and learn some skills, but we wanted to, I mean, you mentioned earlier when we were talking, Joseph, about having some sort of reference guide. I've got this particular scenario, this particular challenge. Can I dip into my toolbox of techniques to help me with this situation? So that's kind of one of the other things that we wanted to give people with this book is this toolbox of techniques for getting to that purpose that Claudia described, that facilitation is all about.
Yeah, it's important actually what Claudia was saying about not just Scrum, because the purpose person, one of the people who wrote the forward for this book was Sam Kaner. And Sam Kaner is not in our space, on Agile, on Scrum, but his thinking around group dynamics, and he was working a lot in terms of thinking about Agile teams, but just the principles and things around that conflict negotiation were really important. And we had several conversations with him, and really appreciated the forward that he wrote.
Yeah, it was great forward, long one too, longer than most. One of the things I love about the book is you kind of go from conception of a team to execution of the team to multiple teams and how to deal with that. So, you start with the conception. You start about things like, hey, let's align on our working agreement. Let's align on why we're here. Let's align on what our vision is and our product goal is. And I think that's so important because I think so many companies are in a rush to just get teams, throw them together and say, here, go build this. And these people don't know, they don't know each other. Maybe they don't know the technologies. They don't understand exactly what they're building, and they don't take the time to just step back and say, well, what is our goal, by the way? I know I'm building my little piece, but how does this fit into the broader spectrum? So many times when I talk to teams, they don't really understand that.
Right. I mean, just the whole purpose of Scrum, right, is to solve complex problems. And if it was easy, you can just take people and make them interchangeable cogs in a machine. It'd be easy, right? But we've got complex, difficult challenges to deal with. So you have to take that time to facilitate that process of bringing that team together to leverage the different perspectives, the different experiences of a team together. And again, that's what we're talking about here through that active facilitation, helping a group of people navigate all of these different sort of complexities to get to the outcome.
That storyline, not really, that structure was important to us because we wanted to anchor in their stories in there, right? So their stories of typical challenges Scrum teams face, or what they may encounter, be it the Scrum events or something else. So we wanted to structure those so that we could share those stories and also our own experiences of what would happen. And I think for Scrum Masters specifically, it's really important to have a full grasp of that story, I think, or what may happen because of their accountability and what they're doing in facilitating Scrum. And I think one of the misconceptions might be that I want to make sure is clear is that people think, oh, the Scrum Master facilitates everything. They don't, right? So this book is for more than just Scrum Masters, but I would say it's particularly good for Scrum Master because it gives them a tool that they can share with their team, so that they can work with stakeholders in different ways and facilitate different conversations between themselves.
Yeah, and
yes,
I'm
please.
sorry. No, I just want to add to when Patricia said about the stories. I think they're very relatable because they are all that what we have experienced ourselves. Because we're practitioners, been there, and we usually get the feedback when people read the book saying, "Oh, I can so relate to that. That's really what I had with my team." So, and that's really what we wanted to get across as well. So it's like, that people can relate to. These are real problems that or real challenges that maybe teams have or really exciting things that teams have as well. So
yeah, what I love too about the stories, and every chapter has one or at least one, which is fantastic, is they're not all success stories. There are some stories where, yeah, we thought this would be a good idea, but after we tried it, kind of turned out that maybe it wasn't. And I remember one because you mentioned liberating structures, Patricia. You were using the 1, 2, 4 all, and you thought, hey, I got a large group, I got a limited amount of time, and this would be great to get everyone heard. But there was that one dominating person that kind of dominated every conversation and got their idea pushed all the way through. So you kind of took a step back and said, maybe that wasn't the best idea given the group of people that I had.
Yeah. And we've seen that, right? So that's how we have that story.
I've been that dominant person.
Oops. Now you know.
But I do love that. It makes it real. It's not a book about theory. It's about a book about real practical experiences. One other area I highlighted that I thought was great was the sprint review, and specifically putting the stakeholder in the driver's seat and that story around that, because I attend sprint reviews all the time, and I'm always turning my camera off and banging my head because it's always about, hey, let me show you what I did, instead of, hey, what do you think about what we're doing and where we're going and are we going down the right path, which is really the empirical process. But that was a great story about putting the stakeholder into the driver's seat and just instead of showing them something, actually having them use it and living with the pains of what they might have assumed that you didn't see coming.
Yeah, I think that was well. It's a technique that I think all of us have used at one time or another. But yeah, I remember using it with one of my early teams, and yeah, like I say, there was that big disconnect where the sprint review was a demonstration. We're wanting to see, was it intuitive, was the product usable by our users and our stakeholders. I don't even remember where the idea came from, but we thought, well, these are the people that are going to be using it, so let's get them to use it in the review. Let's walk them through it. Let's make it that interactive session rather than having these stakeholders sitting passively being presented at. It's like actually get them using the product, and that's the best way to find out how well it works for them.
Yeah, I would say indeed by it's almost observing your users actually using it, isn't it? It's such a great feedback, that observation that you get, because you can show something to stakeholders and they're going, looks great, looks great. You know what I mean? But it's actually when you're actually putting it in their hands, then you probably see like how are they using it? Are they actually, yeah, you get these observations, gives really good insight. So aside from actually engaging stakeholders more, you also get really good insights and data on it. So
Yeah, and it's that kind of practical stuff that we've all dealt with, like a sprint review that really isn't meeting its purpose, or a team that, has a lot of priorities and they're trying to figure out what's the one goal, what's the one thing we can accomplish. I mean, you talk about a lot of these practical problems that we've all faced. And you offer some good ideas and good solutions throughout the book.
Yeah, so we want people for this book also to be able to just pick up any chapter where they might be having a problem. So they don't have to go from the front page to the last page. But it's something that they should be able to read. Oh, that chapter on the sprint review, or this chapter on facilitating conflict, or something like that.
I just had a story this morning. So as a program manager, I'm required to have certain meetings, even if I don't agree with them all the time. And one of them is this weekly core planning at a program level. We bring in people from all different parts of the program to kind of say, okay, where are we? Where are we going? Sort of bit. And I hate it because I'm on teams with 3 pages full of people, half of which I didn't even invite, but they were invited
You're
by
sharing this
others.
on your podcast, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. But no, it's a problem that we've all faced where, you're in this meeting with all these people and you're talking about something that maybe one topic that applies to maybe 4 people out of the 50 that are there. And I was really drawn to the conversation in the book about decentralizing large meetings. And and it kind of really resonated with me. It just happened today where I had someone ping me on the side and say, Joe, do we really need to talk about this with this larger group? And it's like, well, yeah, unfortunately, this is a key thing, but yeah, it only hits a small percentage of the people that are there listening, and most of them are multitasking anyway with their cameras off, so it's even more disengaging. But can you talk a little bit about decentralizing large meetings? And you offered a bunch of different ways of doing that, including something I've used in the past called World Cafe as a way of trying to break it up. So can you talk a little bit more about that? Who wants to go first?
Yeah, I can jump in first. Yeah, it's exactly as you say, and as you were speaking there, I just remember the writing process, and at times it did feel like group therapy sessions where we were kind of like looking back through some of our frustrations. Yeah, right. It's one of those difficult balancing acts within companies, right? How can we make our meetings productive and efficient, and making sure that we got the right people in the right place? So. Yeah, I mean, I always think a general thing in the agile space is taking a big problem and breaking it down into smaller things. And effectively, that's almost what we're doing with some of these techniques through decentralization, right? How do you deal with that big problem of having to, have communication with a big group of people, or to try to extract ideas out when you've got like dozens and dozens of people? So yeah, breaking people into smaller groups, you know, careful use of time boxing, keeping people focused, but also using techniques like World Cafe, so people are like rotating around from station to station, from subject to subject, so you get that shared learning really quickly, right? So yeah, World Cafe is again, we're not inventing anything new here. That we're bringing together a lot of these techniques that exist already. So that one's been around for a while, but yeah, breaking that problem down into several small problems, having different groups attack each one, and then again rotating the groups around. Again, it's really simple but really effective for spreading knowledge, generating ideas, and it's amazing with some of these techniques. You know, you can go months and months through brainstorming sessions and not really have anything solid. But some of these techniques, the good ideas bubble up. And as we talked about earlier, it's not about the loud voice. It's not about the dominant personalities. It's about allowing the good ideas to build on top of each other through these acts of facilitation.
And I actually would like to add, it's not even just having a big group, it's also about people not wanting to speak in big groups. So for example, I'm quite talkative, but I'm very good in small groups. Big groups, you won't, I don't know. I just don't talk really. I don't, it's not that I'm shy or whatever, but it just doesn't feel right. But as soon as you're in small groups, I can actually feel like I can connect and get my ideas across. So I think it's also for those people who don't like to speak or who don't, in big groups. I think it's actually making that smaller and giving everyone an opportunity to have a voice, I think. So it doesn't mean that everyone has to speak, but at least have the opportunity to contribute and have a voice. So,
well, I was going to say, and I, on the other hand, in someone, and especially a large meeting, am going to want to know why I'm here and what's going on, so that I can contribute if I think is, So it's like when you're at Give Thanks for Scrum Joe, you remind us in the beginning why we're here, what's the purpose, and you've iterated on how we can share information and do, like the last year was open space, which is really different from how it's been done. It's using different practices and techniques and all those things like that, like the World Cafe and making sure everybody's heard, but going back to the principles of facilitation in general and keeping an eye on why are we here? What are we doing? What are the outcomes we want to meet? What is the purpose? So that you can question like you are, what's going on here, so that it's not just all these extra meetings, but really making sure that the events and the meetings that we have are valuable routines that exist for a reason.
And we talked about, you mentioned Give Thanks to Scrum, and we talked about the theme of last year's Give Thanks, which was the future of Scrum with a question mark, because there was so much anxiety in the Agile world. A lot of Scrum Masters, product owners losing their jobs, a lot of companies pulling back from the big consultant firms and the big word transformations and so forth. And we've been spending a lot of time over the last year talking about what does the next generation Scrum Master look like? How can they evolve away from, I see this in a lot of companies where Scrum Masters are nothing more than facilitators and sometimes not very good facilitators, or just administrators, but not people that really drive value. But tell me a little about how for the audience, like how this book can really help them become really relevant value drivers within their organizations.
Yeah, you make a good point. I think a lot of organizations have always misunderstood the Scrum Master role, and then this idea of the Agile coach and then this coaching stance became very central to what Scrum Masters did. But that's just one thing Scrum Masters should be doing, and I think we kind of lost part of the other parts as well. Like a Scrum Master is also, they're that mentor, they're that teacher of Scrum as well. They're there to help teams to be effective. They need to be concerned about delivery. But to do these things, the Scrum Master is that glue that brings the team together. We've talked earlier about how, facilitation is about meeting a purpose, right? So it's much more than just making sure the meeting rooms are booked and an agenda is being followed. Are we reaching the purpose of our meetings? Have we got to the end of the sprint review? Have we got stakeholders that are giving us feedback? Have we updated the product backlog based on latest information? These are all facilitation skills that Scrum Masters and the rest of the Scrum team and beyond need to have in order to be successful. So I think it's always been there, but I think now we need to we need to shine a light on it more. That what we need to do is just more than, coaching and all these other things as well. And facilitation is one of those core skills that spread into a lot of these other areas, I think.
Yeah, I also want to add, we often do an activity, for example, when I talk about what makes a great team, and usually people come up with collaboration, communication, having a shared goal. So all these things, I just think of a team, think of like a football team, or maybe one of your hobby teams, or it doesn't have to be a Scrum team. What characteristics did that team have, to make that team so successful? And like I said, is the collaboration, having different perspectives as well, and leveraging those and such. And those are kind of all of these things that you facilitate. You facilitate that collaboration, in a lightweight manner, but you help the team to become effective through facilitation and doing those things that allows open communication, that allows people to be collaborative, that allows people to have different perspectives and therefore be innovative. Yeah, so it's all that kind of facilitation that comes in. So like I said, I'll move past the events part, but actually really go like the whole team dynamics and what makes a great team and how facilitation can help with that.
I think that just in terms of the Scrum is passe and Agile is dead, it's really interesting to think about in the times now. Always, it's like more than ever now, but things are really volatile. There's a lot of variables out there, and why are companies backing away from Scrum, or something that helps them kind of mitigate risk and think about things and be innovative? Why is that happening now? Why are companies shying away from it? And what do they want and what do they need? And I was having actually a conversation with Ken Schwaber, and I was saying, Ken, do you think the problems that existed when you first started, thinking about something like Scrum and using it, do they still exist? And some of the things are different, technology is different, but I think they do, right? Like they do exist where people are just unable to think about this empirical process and how they might collaborate and how they think about control and power and all those things. So for people who are Scrum Masters, who are in a Scrum team or product team, I think it's really important to think about, not only what Glaudia said in terms of the group dynamic skills, but very much about what you were saying, which is value driving and thinking about risk and how do we build transparency and all those things. That's what makes Scrum valuable.
Right. It's really about driving teams to be more effective. And when you can do that, and they're not just producing value, but they're producing the right value for the right teams, that's how, I think organizations succeed. Well, this has been great. Thank you very, very much for the time today. Again, the book is called Facilitating Professional Scrum Teams. And we're going to invite Glaudia and David in the near future to do an hour presentation at one of our virtual meetups. And by the way, in Appendix B of this book, which I love, there's a whole section on how to facilitate virtual, which was obviously the new norm. I'm at home here, so as an example, so that's always another great point I wanted to mention about the book and the practical nature of it. So thank you guys for being here today, and we'll look forward to seeing Glaudia and David in an upcoming talk. And Patricia, of course, we'll look forward to seeing you very soon, maybe in the next Give Thanks for Scrum. I did talk to David about it, and I think we're going to do another one, so the legend lives on, as they say.
A little Thanksgiving party, we'd miss it.
Yeah, I know. It wouldn't be Thanksgiving week without it. So again, thank you, Glaudia. Thank you, David. Thank you, Patricia, for your time today. And to everyone, thank you for listening to our latest podcast. And we can't wait to see you again.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thank you.